Welcome to the SWAM NPTEL course on food microbiology for safe and sustainable food systems. In the last classes, we have seen the contamination of foods and we have discussed so far the biological and chemical contaminants, and now we will be discussing in this lecture physical and cross contamination, and we will be covering the sources, effect of physical food contamination, when can food become physically contaminated, how to prevent and control physical contaminants in food, preventing physical contamination, tips for preventing physical food contamination, and lastly cross contamination. The physical contamination of food is something tangible that is not intended to be part of the product. This type of contamination risk includes the chances of different foreign objects entering the final food product during the preparation process, external sources, or those that already exist in the raw material, that is internal sources, which is used to create the end product. Such contamination might be glass, wood, bone, stone, or even hair, and can be introduced into the food product by accident during the raw material harvesting or at any point during the food production process and distribution to consumers. These physical hazards need to be identified, controlled, and detected at a certain level to provide consistent quality and food safety for the consumers. It is always important to understand which of the physical contaminations could cause serious harm to the consumer and make proactive actions to control and prevent such hazards. Processors must determine procedures to control physical hazards by developing a hazard analysis at critical control point, that is HACCP. In the facility, implement and monitor the food production with a view to exercise control at the points where contamination occurs. Sources: physical contamination happens when physical objects enter food. Common sources of physical contamination include hair. Always wear hair neatly tied back and wear a hair net if possible. Glass or metals, cracked or broken crockery and utensils should be thrown away, as well as any food that might have come into contact with it. Pests. Pests such as mice, rats, and cockroaches leave droppings like urine, saliva, fur, feces that can contaminate food. Pests themselves can also make their way into food. Jewelry. It is not recommended to wear jewelry when handling food. In some regions, it may be restricted by local laws or regulations. Dirts. Because dirt is so small, it is not easy to notice it. Dirt often gets into food via unwashed food and vegetables. Fingernails. Always keep nails short and clean to prevent contamination. Avoid wearing fake nails as they can easily fall off and contaminate food. These are the things, pictorial representation of different physical contamination of the food, like glass, metals, hairs, plastics, rodents. Like here you see, here hairs is there, the metal parts, this is the nails, etc., and here the rodents. The following examples show how and where your food could be contaminated from, and gives examples of what has contaminated food at the past. Included are some controls you can put in place to reduce the risk of this happening to your customers and to protect your business. From the building, the items could contaminate your food may include plaster, flakes of paint, pieces of brick, broken glass, broken tiles, screw fixings, covering or sheetings from electricity cable, etc. From equipment, the items could contaminate your food may include nuts and bolts, screws, pieces of metal, etc. By cleaning your equipment regularly, we can also keep a check on its conditions. Having a maintenance program for the equipment to ensure it stays in good repair and running condition. From packaging, the items could contaminate your food may include pieces of wood, glass, staples, string, elastic bands, polythene, cardboard, etc. The type of packaging material suppliers uses, for example, if the supplier uses metal staples to seal cases, there is a risk that the staples might fall into the case and end up in the food. From the food handlers, the items could contaminate your food may include hair, combs, nail varnish, fingernails, sweet papers and wrappings, buttons, chewing gum, pens and pen tops, earrings and various other items of jewelry. The effect of physical food contamination. When physical food contaminants enter food, they become a hazard to health and safety. This is because they should not be there and the person eating the meal is not expecting them to be there. Physical food contaminants are sometimes non-organic in nature. Therefore, they are not designed to be ingested at all. The effects of a customer finding a physical food contaminant can vary depending on whether they find the contaminant prior to eating it, discover it in their mouths or swallow it. They also depend on the type of contaminant in question. There might also be consequences for the business that has allowed unsafe food to be served. Physical contaminants in food can result in choking, illness, as some physical contaminants may be biological contaminants, broken teeth or damage to the soft tissues in the mouth, customers' distress, lost revenue due to having to compensate the customer, bad press and poor reviews, loss of footfall due to negative attention, legal action and fines. When can food become physically contaminated? Certain behaviors can increase the risk of food being contaminated with foreign objects, such as when it is left out in the open air uncovered. Contaminants can enter food during cooking without a lid. Food preparation or packaging in an unclean and unhygienic environment. Buffets pose a risk as many people are handling and standing over food. when staff are poorly trained or careless with their food preparation. If kitchen staff and food handlers wear jewelry, false nails, eyelashes, or pale colored plasters, if pests are not dealt with and flies are present, in cluttered, deorganized spaces where there is an abundance of items that could accidentally fall into food, using inadequate or broken utensils to prepare or serve food, in places such as carveries where food is left out, often uncovered under hot lamps. Now, how to prevent and control physical contaminants in food? The first step in controlling and preventing physical contaminants in food production is to create a safety culture throughout the entire food processing chain. Food producers should make necessary changes and action to ensure a production environment where the possible sources for physical contaminations are mitigated. These proactive actions prevent the contamination risks and limit the number of contamination cases to a fraction, compared to complete negligence of safety culture and preventive actions. To do this correctly, food producers need to target the suspected sources of physical contaminations and identify the contaminations that poses a true risk. Once this is done, it is important to evaluate the root cause, eliminate the contributing factors, and implement an inspection system in place to verify and control that these actions have been successful. There are various technologies available for controlling the physical contaminations at the different stages of food production and distribution. For example, bulk inspection is sometimes necessary to control the quality of the raw material before it is produced into final products. The final safety inspection is recommended to happen in the primary packaging phase, where the product is packaged and sealed. This enables the best possible detection rates for all types of physical contaminations and enables true traceability that is necessary, especially when the process from farm to fork takes a long time and includes multiple risks for contaminations to enter the food product. Preventing physical contamination. Because physical contamination can happen at every stage of food harvesting, processing, and preparation, HACCP standards emphasize that food products must be inspected several times on their journey from raw ingredients to finished products. Adequate prevention of physical contamination can be accomplished with a range of food contamination detection equipment, food quality assurance methods, and proper hygiene. The following series offers guidelines for the safe detection and removal of physical contaminants in industrial food processing. The basics of metal detection in the food industry. Improper handling and equipment wear can result in metal fragments entering in food products. This provides an overview of the role and effectiveness of industrial metal detectors for food contaminants. The use of X-ray inspection systems in the food industry. X-rays for the food industry are often implemented to inspect products after they have been packaged. Learn about how food safety X-rays can be used to detect organic and non-organic contaminants from bone fragments to glass shards. Determining critical control points in the food production process. HACCP is a systematic approach to food quality control in industrial settings. This explains how to define at which points quality assurance measures should be implemented into food production process. Testing contaminants detector performance according to standards. In many cases, food safety is directly linked to the accuracy of X-ray inspection machine or metal detector for food processing. This explains how and when to assess the performance of food inspection equipment. This figure shows the physical contamination detection systems in the food and beverage industry that different critical control points should be installed, like at the time of arrival of the bulk ingredients, that is raw materials. At that time the X-ray should be subjected to X-ray detection, then metal detection, and then check for the weights, etc. The another stage could be after preparation, but before packaging of the food. Again the same procedure should be followed for the presence of any metals. In the checkpoint 3, when the food is packaged, again the same processing should be followed. At the time of end product line, the same procedure should be followed for the presence of any metals. Tips for preventing physical food contamination. Do's. Ensure food safety training in the business is thorough and regularly refreshed. Maintain a clean and hygienic food preparation environment and encourage good housekeeping. Ensure long hair is always tied back and are covered with a hair net or hat. Make sure food is handled as little as possible with hands. Instead use tongs, serving spoons, ladles, etc. Cover pans during cooking with an appropriate lid. Store items in the fridge in closed containers or covered with cling film. Wear bright colored plasters in the kitchen after an injury, which are easy to spot. It is common for blue plasters to be worn by food handlers. If food business orders in ready meals to heat up, make sure you buy from reputable suppliers and do not use any items that come in broken or damaged packaging. Make sure fresh produce such as fruits or vegetables is washed thoroughly to prevent dirt or pests remaining on it. This is especially true for root vegetables or potatoes, which can arrive with a significant amount of earth still on their skin. Store food away from cleaning materials such as sweeping brushes or mops. Use good quality cleaning cloths, sponges and scourer pads and discard them once they begin to fray or break apart. Conduct regular stock takes to keep stock at appropriate levels and reduce waste and overcrowded shelves and surfaces. Know the signs to look out for that indicate pests are present and call in a relevant professional to deal with pests. Now don'ts. Don't leave food out in the open air for any longer than needed. Don't allow rubbish to build up, as this can encourage pests. Don't permit excessive jewelry to be worn. Staff should keep jewelry to a minimum. This should include the service staff also. Don't use baking trays or metal pans that are starting to corrode or the metal chips off. Discard them and purchase new ones. Don't serve ice by scooping it with a glass. Use tongs or a plastic or metal ice scoop. Don't underestimate the risk that a physical contaminant in food can pose, which can include serious illness or even a fatality. In some cases, there are simple steps that can be taken to avoid food becoming physically contaminated. As with all hazards, it is always best to try to identify any risks and deal with them before they become a hazard. If this has not been done and an unfortunate incident has occurred, it is vital that business learn lessons from this and put procedures in place to avoid similar problems in future. This can be understood by some case studies. Case study 1. The chef has prepared a meal with care in a hygienic kitchen. It is a hot, hectic evening, and once the meal is at the table, the consumer complains that there is a false eyelash in the meal. It has fallen off the waitress who served the meal because the glue became unstuck due to the hot environment and no one noticed. This could have been easily dealt with beforehand by making it clear that fashion items such as glued on eyelashes are not appropriate in the working place, and explaining uniform requirements during the interview phase. If this communication did not suffice, once the employee arrived for their shift, they should have been asked to remove the item or sent home if this was not possible. Now the case study 2. A customer at a carvery finds a small piece of metal in their meal and at most swallows it. On closer inspection, it appears to be a screw. Carvery meals are often presented in a similar way to buffets, so guests can help themselves. Food is kept warm under bright hot lamps that shine from above. It is very important that the correct bulbs are used and all fixtures and fittings are properly secured to avoid the risk of any physical contaminants accidentally falling into the food below. These should be checked before and after every service, and any equipment that is broken or has loose fitting parts should be removed from circulation until it has been fixed. Case study 3. A dinner in a busy chain restaurant sees a large piece of plastic in their meal and complaints. Due to the nature of the restaurant, many of the meals are brought in ready-made and heated up. The contaminant in this case is plastic from the film lid, which has not been removed adequately before cooking. This could have been avoided if kitchen staff and worked with more care and attention, or the server had spotted it prior to it reaching the customer's table. Preparing fresh food from scratch also helps to minimize problems like this occurring. The cross contamination. Cross contamination is the accidental transfer of contaminants from one surface or substance to another, usually as a result of improper handling procedures. In a food setting, the term refers to the transfer of a contaminants from a surface, object or person to food. Cross contamination usually refers to biological contamination, but can also be physical or chemical. Cross contamination in a food business often occurs as a result of food handlers, for example, microorganisms from sweat, sneezing or coughing, hands, hair or from clothing. Improper handling techniques, for example, reusing cutting boards or utensils for raw and cooked food or for different types of food. Improper cleaning and sanitizing, for example, not properly rinsing cleaning chemicals from preparation surfaces, dishwares, glassware or equipment. Improper food storage, for example, storing raw meat on shelves above ready to eat food. Improper waste disposal, for example, allowing garbage containers to overflow. Pests. Cross contamination can pose a risk to customers with food allergies, as trace amount of an allergen can be transferred in the same way that microorganisms can. Even trace amounts of an allergen can cause a serious allergic reaction, in some cases a lethal reaction. As a food business owner, manager or employee, it is your responsibility to serve customers, including those with food allergies, a safe meal. These are some tips to avoid cross contamination, like chemicals to food. It can be avoided by label chemicals clearly, have a designated closets for different chemicals, keep chemicals far away from your food. The food to food. Keep ready to eat foods away from raw foods or food allergens. Use designated utensils, cutting boards, etc. for raw foods and allergens. After handling allergens or raw foods, immediately change gloves and wash your hands. Pest to food. Store food at least 6 inches above the floor. Keep foods covered. Keep a clean, sanitized and tidy kitchen. There are another 4 ways to prevent cross contamination, that includes the protect. Protect to avoid contamination being spread into different areas by dedicated lab coats and shoes, hygiene junctions, biosafety cabinets. The another is clean. Clean to maintain the right hygiene levels by hand washing, bench disinfection, housekeeping and cleaning, waste management. The another way to control cross contamination is to control that system is efficient. like environmental monitoring, surface and air, pest control, blank analysis, and the separate the incompatible activities, lab layouts, that is zoning, low and high risk areas, samples and staff workflows, and positive strains. To minimize the risk of cross contamination occurring in your food business, always move around the business in accordance with the food safety plan. For example, change soiled kitchen clothing before moving from raw food to ready to eat preparation stations. Cover and store raw food on shelves below cooked or ready to eat food in the refrigerator. Read more on preventing contamination in the freezers. Use separate equipment or utensils to prepare raw and cooked foods. Use separate equipment or utensils to prepare different types of foods. Prepare allergen-free meals separately. Establish allergen management procedures as part of your food safety plan. Maintain high standards of personal hygiene. Wash hands frequently using the correct hand washing technique. Handle and dispose of food scraps and waste properly. For example, ensure garbage containers are sealed and stored away from food. That's all for today. Thank you very much.